Everyone, I'm Michael Keenan. Robot cars that drive themselves without human driving them, are nearly here. And this will be one of the biggest technological shifts of our lifetimes. And it's about time that we had a big technological shift. Imagine that everyone here is signed on for the long-term vision of radical technological change, immortality, space colonization, and strong artificial intelligence. But the short term may not be so shiny. People like billionaire entrepreneur Peter Thiel and economist Tyler Cowen have brought up this allegedly unthinkable idea that we are in a great stagnation, a time when technological progress is slowing down, and with it, economic progress is slowing down. This is an excerpt from Tyler Cowen's book, where he points out that, as he says, from 1880 to 1940, ordinary people saw the introduction of electric lights, cars, planes, telephone, TV, typewriters, tape recorders, phonograph, the indoor plumbing, and radio, and several other inventions. In our lifetimes, perhaps we've seen many improvements in a lot of devices, but there are very few that have changed everyone's lives. Perhaps computers, the internet, mobile phones, and GPS navigation. Peter Thiel, one of the founders of the Founders Fund, has this rallying cry. We wanted flying cars, we got 140 characters. So people are skeptical that any major new technologies are coming anytime soon. But to that list of 4 that I mentioned, we are about to get a major 5th addition. Robot cars are coming. These companies and several others are making huge progress towards fully autonomous robot cars. Volkswagen, for example, already has the Golf 7, which detects when you're crossing into another lane and will just steer your car right back into your lane. It also has smart cruise control, maintaining the right distance from your car to the car in front of you, which is basically all you need for freeway driving already. Google Car, I'm sure most people have already heard of. The Google cars, there's about a dozen of them, have already driven for about 300,000 driver hours without an accident. There was an accident caused by a car rear-ending it when it was stopped, other drivers' fault. And in fact, one car crashed while a human was driving it. So already, these cars are more safe than humans. So self-driving cars are legal for testing in California, Nevada, and Florida. And Sergey Brin, a founder of Google, says that their self-driving cars will be available to consumers in less than 6 years. The way they work, or at least the way the vision works, is demonstrated here. The technology is called LiDAR, light detection and ranging, and it bounces a laser off objects and measures the backscatter to create a 3D image of its surroundings. Robot cars are such a big deal for several reasons. First, cars kill, or rather people with cars kill. Everyone knows somebody, or knows someone who knows somebody who has died in a car accident. In my case, the secretary at the first job I ever worked at died in a head-on collision in New Zealand. My colleague and co-founder of a startup of mine in Taiwan had his best friend die in a car accident in Canada. A friend of mine had her father die in an accident in California. And you presumably all have your own examples. These are the statistics. 32,000 fatalities a year in the United States. This is actually dropping. It peaked at 54,000 a year, but mostly due to new safety standards and safety devices, like the introductions to robot cars, these collision avoidance technologies, this is dropping slowly, and I think it is about to eclipse, or about to be beneath the number of gun deaths in the United States every year. That's 1.2 million fatalities worldwide, 250,000 injuries, and about 9 million injuries worldwide. 93% of these accidents are caused by human error. The rest are mechanical error and severe weather and a few other things. Disproportionately, these accidents, these deaths, impact the young. Unlike many other causes of death, when you solve perhaps heart disease or alleviate that somewhat, a lot of those people are soon to die of cancer. And that isn't to diminish these deaths, I won't stop them all. But you save many more life years when you save a young person from a car accident. Robot cars won't just save lives. It will help with many other problems, such as congestion. This is LA traffic. Congestion is a problem everywhere in every major city in the world. We lose 6 billion hours a year waiting in traffic. That's just in America. Multiply these figures by about 37 for any car-related figure, and you get the worldwide figure. That time at American average wage is about $140 billion a year. And it wastes 6 billion gallons of gas every year. And so the reason why robot cars solve congestion is robot cars can have much closer following distances than humans. We have this problem called congestion collapse. Ordinarily, a lane of highway carries 2,000 cars per hour. But when it slows to a traffic jam to stop and go traffic, then it collapses to 1,100 cars per hour. And so as soon as you have a traffic jam, you will have a traffic jam until the rate of cars that you need to get through is less than that amount. Robot cars can have much closer following distances because their reaction times are in the milliseconds rather than the quarter seconds that a human takes. And at their best, they can be traveling much faster than humans. They can potentially safely travel at 120 miles per hour. Put it all together, and you get 5 times the carrying capacity in our roads, 10,000 cars per hour per lane. It's not, of course, just congestion that wastes our time. Driving time itself takes up 50 billion American hours, which is about $1.1 trillion at the average wage. Compare this to our $15 trillion GDP, and it's about 6.7% of our GDP, of our productive hours, are spent driving. And commuting in general, driving, is usually unpleasant. Not always, of course, but happiness research shows that commuting is the least enjoyable daily activity. This is a graph from a Daniel Kahneman study from 2004. Commuting is less enjoyable than anything. Actually, I've averaged morning commuting and evening commuting there. Morning commuting is less enjoyable. Evening commuting is still less enjoyable than working. And so you start your day with the worst possible thing that could happen to you. Well, that's not entirely true, but worst common thing that can happen to you. So people hate commuting. This has impacts on energy. Robot cars save the electric car. The major problem with electric cars is the range. A full tank of gas can take you many hundreds of miles. The robot cars, particularly of the 90s, had a much smaller range than that. And people wanted to buy their cars for the worst case scenario, for the longest drive that you want to do. And charging the car can take a while, unless you use a battery swap technology, which for some reason never quite worked out, or at least was never implemented very well. Robot cars will be much lighter than our existing cars because they won't crash. 30% of the weight of your car is devoted to its safety systems, mostly armor for when it does crash. Because they can be electric cars, they will reduce or perhaps eliminate the importation of oil. This does not eliminate the usage of fossil fuels because American electricity is about half from coal power plants, and we will need more of them. The risks is, well, in the future, solar technology and other renewables will be bigger, so the overall impact is really good. Robot cars will go faster, so you will get to your destination faster, but you won't really mind because you will be doing some other convenient thing in your car. working, having meetings, playing games, watching TV, sleeping, reading. Parking, well, there will be a huge impact upon parking. Robot cars can park in front of driveways or in front of fire hydrants, or they can drop you at your destination and then drive 5 minutes away out of the best real estate in your city and do this. And drive and park in some parking garage, which is dark and cramped with low ceilings, where the cars are crammed together like a jigsaw puzzle, where one of those not a jigsaw puzzle, a puzzle where you just have one piece free, and then the car right at the very back row can come all the way to the front. Some horrifying percentage of our city is used for parking. And we can eliminate that from the city centers. We can eliminate all on-street parking and use that for extra lanes if we even need the capacity, but due to the other great things about robot cars, we might not even need that capacity. And robot cars change the economics of having a car. We may see a robo-taxi experience to Burning Man with half a ton of stuff. Because robo-taxis will be so cheap. The cars themselves will not use nearly as much energy as modern cars, and of course there will be no taxi driver, which takes up a large percentage of the cost of the car. This will be more convenient for all those who cannot drive. Children, elderly, the drunk, the disabled. This will eliminate our society-wide problem of drunk driving, and with that, eliminates a large percentage of the problems we have with police, not just drunk driving, but driving in general. There's this antagonism between civilians and police, and perhaps that will be reduced when we, all of us, have many fewer negative interactions with them. This is a graph of BTUs per passenger mile. That's British transportation units, which are a little over 1,000 joules, I think. The important thing is the comparison between these different transportation methods. I used to be really in favor of rail and public transit in general until I started looking into it and saw graphs like these. Public transport in general, and rail in particular, is much less efficient than you might think. This is because whenever you're on a bus or a train, it's generally packed, and it's packed because you're on it and you're a typical person. Okay, you aren't typical people, but perhaps your transit methods are. But buses and trains spend a lot of time empty, but you never notice that because you're not on it because it's empty. So a robot taxi world replaces mass transit. Transit is slower for you because it starts and stops frequently. It's less convenient because it doesn't start at your house and end at your destination. It's not very energy efficient, and it's certainly not energy efficient compared to a 1 or 2 seater robot car. So it's currently useful at rush hour, but there won't be this problem with rush hour when our roads have 5 times the carrying capacity. So there are a few downsides to robot cars. Robot cars may contribute to sprawl. And if you don't like sprawl, it's going to get worse when driving is cheaper. It'll be cheaper in psychic pain and the time it takes to get anywhere, and in energy and money. It might eventually be illegal for humans to drive. And certain Americans that I've spoken to get very upset about that prospect. Perhaps, though, there will be a generational turnover where those who have grown up with robot cars will have less of a status or identity aspect to their driving. And there may be a remote kill switch if we live in this robot taxi world where you don't own the car that you're driving. In this case, you may have to do what Tom Cruise did in Minority Report and jump out of the top of your car. There will be other problems, perhaps. People will walk less and contribute to obesity. There could be a massive disruption, especially if this occurs very quickly, to anybody whose job involves driving, such as taxi drivers, truck drivers. And there could be disruptions to police when this huge demand for a certain percentage of our police forces is involved with traffic policing. All in all, this is totally worthwhile. So I thank Brad Templeton for the information and inspiration for this talk. He also gives talks at some events that perhaps you'll have been to, like the Build Conference, which I think is coming up in February. Few other projects offer quite so much as robot cars. Robot cars will save millions of lives, billions of dollars, and trillions of hours. It may help pull us out of this great stagnation if we are in one, and will have a huge impact upon our economy. We really should have pulled a Manhattan project on this, given the enormous benefits. But as we do with so many other things, we've relied on Silicon Valley billionaires, like we're doing with space colonization with Elon Musk, and ocean colonization from Peter Thiel, and artificial intelligence, various billionaires are funding that too. Sorry, any questions?
Yeah.
Hi.
You didn't mention anything about negative aspects of putting truck drivers out of work. How does it work to you park in front of a fire hydrant? Does that mean that the robot car has autonomy to move because of, negative impacts? There's got to be some.
Yes, sorry, I glossed over the fire hydrant thing. Yes, the idea is that they can park in front of a fire hydrant because if you need it to move, it will move. And for the negative impacts, the impacts upon truck drivers, perhaps I went over that with insufficient consideration. Yes, there will be this impact upon truck drivers. They will most likely all lose their jobs. Insurance companies will generally love this, or at least there's this mixed impact. Of course, they'll be paying out much fewer, a lot less for car accidents, but perhaps then they'll have less business. Lawyers will have less work to do car accidents.
Who will be insuring? Will people who own the cars that still insure their cars, even though the robots are really good at doing driving?
That isn't worked out and gets discussed a lot, and there are likely to be regulatory holdups with that because the current regulatory system for this and like liability systems aren't set up for when you don't control the car that you're driving. So we don't know yet. Over there in the back?
Okay. I thought of another negative impact, that is that whoever is running the robo-car system will know where everyone is traveling, basically everyone after their life. And that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I would like the idea of your brother out there knowing exactly where I go. They already, like it's a credit card, they already know. They already know what I buy and how much I spend. Read my emails, yada. It's don't need nothing. But we do. You don't have to be surprised. It's a little bit scary.
I agree.
Anyone trying to work around this issue, or are we just going to let it happen?
To the best of my knowledge, nobody is actively doing anything about it yet, except pointing it out, which is helpful. This is one of the many technologies that is killing privacy. It relates to that talk, I think 2 talks ago, the guy with the cameras talking about with facial recognition and cameras everywhere, privacy is dead. There.
What happens when our technology becomes so ubiquitous it ceases to be of interest? This is a discussion topic because it's rare, because I'd like to have it, but only everybody else doesn't. So what happens when everybody does that?
I think that society's moved to a next level, and that's great.
I mean, we're then concerned about privacy and autonomy.
Oh, I see.
And so we're concerned about, well, why can't I drive on my own car?
I have heard it pointed out that privacy in a modern conception of it is quite unusual. That in the hunter-gatherer days of 10,000 years ago, with tribes of 50 to 150 people, everybody knew everybody, and you generally didn't have your own private space, your own private bedroom. And so perhaps we will go back to just a different mode of living.
But in that old mode of living, we knew everybody, interact with everybody to do about us, whereas modern world, some faceless, powerful person that we'll never even know, we can't influence those around us. So I mean, yes, it's sort of different, saying that it's also kind of different. I think there are real issues curious to start thinking, it's almost like we need to create a new ethical paradigm about not using these powers created inside
I agree. I don't think we, yeah, hopefully we had a new.
It's like to go throw trash where we go for your fence, you pay where we are, you know, we go.
Agreed. There.
So what are your plans for international localization and adoption? Or your prediction?
Well, many different companies are working on it, as I mentioned. There are projects in Germany and England that I know of. I don't know the extent to which they're working with each other. It helps a bit when the robot cars can communicate with each other, but it's not completely necessary. The Google cars, for example, are not communicating with other human-driven cars on the roads. So perhaps multiple systems can work together on the same roads.
Two quick questions. Can you say anything about, at least currently, the additional cost for the LiDAR safety systems? And then second one is, talked about it briefly, but where does liability fall? Right, is we still have phones that crash, computers that crash.
The cost of the LiDAR system on the Google cars is $75,000, and the rest of the equipment is about another $50,000, I think. These are expected to fall to less than $1,000 with economies of scale and mass production. About liability, it gets really complicated. An example that was brought up is suppose that there's some robot car that detects has some problem with a taillight or something. So it comes to a stop because that's what it's programmed to do. And then some other car rear ends it, and which was their fault perhaps, but the robot car should not have stopped there. And some other models of robot cars wouldn't have done it, but perhaps it wouldn't have done it if the human had run the software update that it was prompting it to do. Whose fault is this? That's something for lawyers to figure out. And some people say that perhaps this legal problem will destroy the robot car industry, which I think is very unlikely because the cost of car accidents currently, when averaged across every car, is about $215 per car per year. Which is perhaps alarming to think of one company taking on the many billions of dollars that all adds up to. But if that just raises the cost of your car by $215, that would be fine and that would cover it for the company. But of course, the cars are going to be crashing much less. So whatever the cost is, even if it is completely borne by the car manufacturers, this doesn't slow down our robot car future. Which isn't to say that it isn't still an interesting question. I would like to know how it works out. There.
Did you say anything about security as far as like driving the car? How the car will know the right person is driving it as far as
I haven't seen people bring that up, but I imagine that our typical way of using like a particular key that opens a car or a fingerprint scanner might be the best way to go. Any issue?
Yeah. Robot cars are going to lead to an increase in urban sprawl and an increase in driving longer distances. That's going to be a big cost for the see an increase in fuel consumption rather than a decrease. So this would not seem to be much of a solution to energy problems in itself.
Yes. If we can, it gives us basically a little more flexibility. Currently, we burn oil to run a car, and that's your only option, except for like a few biofuels that, in my opinion, are mostly bad ideas. But now we can run it off the national grid, and that can be a mix of coal and preferably renewables like solar and hydrothermal and wind, and perhaps wave energy. But you're right. Whenever car driving becomes cheaper, like you have this phenomenon that traffic engineers encounter where you add more capacity to roads and people can still drive more, and so you still have congestion collapse and still have horrible traffic jams. So it's been a pernicious problem.
It's like getting a decreased price of fuel because of
Yes. Because the increase in capacity is so large, it's 5 times it should be, then hopefully that'll finally get ahead of humans, at least for a little while. There.
What about car chases? Did I say how I went? It's going to ruin the movie industry.
Well, actually, I mean, it could make it more exciting. If cars are typically going at 120 miles per hour, and that's all the obstacles you have to deal with, you could get even more exciting car chases. That's fun. Anyone else? right there.
Is anyone concerned about potential that hack cars that cause car crashes or terrorist attacks and black boxes?
Yes, I've seen people bring all those up, and we'll have to see how it goes. It looks like a generally bad idea to have the car be remotely driven for that reason. And hopefully there will be no remote kill switch for governments or hackers or terrorists to access either. How am I doing for time? Am I still good? Somebody just yell at me if there's a problem. Okay, good.
I just wanted to respond to the surveillance concerns and the security concerns that privacy is really dead, it seems, and security, all our security mechanisms are broken, the passwords that are broken. We're going to have to solve these like foundational problems at a higher level of thinking in terms of authentication, identity, security, producing things like this. And otherwise, there's bound to be catastrophic exploits, I think. There's a hackers conference that a team demoed remotely hacking the OnStar system of a car in remote study. This wasn't a robo car, so they couldn't drive it anywhere. But I mean, future is very well could be honest. Yeah, we have lots.
Yes.
And that's society. That's a mental, it's a society issue.
I can imagine you looked at this being more like a UPS or FedEx model, getting B was, routing system, figure out which way is best to go. I love to stand in and say, I want to go there, and then take me in my little collection of the flight boys. Is that what you were just saying?
I think so, yes. The robot taxi world, where you probably don't own your own car, yeah. You would call it with your cell phone, that'd be swarming the streets all the time. Or even if you do own your own car, perhaps it drops you off at work and you don't need your car for the next 8 hours. So you tell it, go be a taxi for the next 8 hours. It makes you money, it costs you money, it's parking.
Would it be a taxi or maybe your own little bubble?
It'd be your own bubble. You would generally get the car of the size that you need.
For biological warfare, someone takes some airborne disease and not take someone that sticks in their car and even though they're on cars and they're using their cars, how do you prevent that?
I agree, that sounds like a concern. What about chances of terrorism? I believe what the scenario was putting an airborne biological agent into a car that multiple people get in and out of and perhaps spread around further. It opens up a bunch of terrorism possibilities. As autonomous vehicles generally do. The first time there was robot-on-robot warfare was back in 2007, actually. Terrorists or people in Iraq had loaded a remote-controlled car with bombs, and an American Predator drone spotted that and shot it before it could get to anybody, which is we're well into this future of robot-on-robot warfare. Of course, your scenario is robots versus humans, or humans in robot cars. We are likely to see something like that, I would expect. But if it's not going to be that, it'll be some other terrorist attack, and there's plenty of ways to kill people. Right here? Oh,
I just want.
Here, go. Were you going to respond?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I already have an answer. Okay, so, I was wondering what you thought of military applications, and asked about that, other vehicles, and then also in this future where this technology is implemented, who does still get to drive it independently? I mean, who still gets to control cars if they want to? How do you let people still do that?
The military actually funded a lot of the original research in this through funding robot car competitions. So, of course, their interest is being able to drive, for example, trucks in Iraq without humans being at risk, and generally just driving military vehicles on land as they already do in the air without humans.
Do you see a future for like a robot tank?
Yes, I imagine that would happen. What was the second part of your question?
Other vehicles. I was interested when you thought about other robot vehicles, and then also in the future, who are the type of people who control the
I expect you'll see robot vehicles of all kinds. Cars seem to actually be the most difficult. The drones, of course, already exist because the air is not very crowded. The future of, sorry, what was it again?
It's just like I enjoy the control of driving. I'm wondering in the future if there's a place for that, or if you were or if independent drivers can, during the transitional phase, still use the roads that they like, or if you envision something where robot cars are more enforced.
It might be that in the future, almost all almost all car accidents are caused by humans, and there turns to be a public outcry against that, and then humans are no longer allowed to drive. Perhaps private racetracks or private roads would be where humans would go. Especially because the robot cars could potentially be traveling on the freeways at 120 miles per hour or more, and humans, if they're driving slower, would be like annoying and dangerous, and if they're driving fast, would be dangerous. Yeah. Sorry, who was the person?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, to what extent do you think this will solve congestion issues on the road? And if you're also suggesting that cars shouldn't be operated from external sources, then how will routing work? How will cars know where non-congested areas are? So if there is an issue where each car is an autonomous unit without knowledge of where all the other cars are or which way they're flowing, then that might cause efficiency issues.
I just mean that they shouldn't be remotely driven so that they can't be taken over and then driven to the police station, as happened to Tom Cruise in Minority Report. Or it could be that the advantages of that outweigh it. However, they can still get traffic information just like your GPS unit can. So your car can communicate with other cars with like short-term radio, short-wave, short-length radio or whatever, Bluetooth, if the distance is fine, and certainly get traffic information. So that should be fine.
So
is there another
congestion issues?
Congestion?
How will it solve congestion? Can you talk about how congestion issues might be solved with this?
So currently, congestion occurs because you can't get more than 2,000 cars per lane on a highway. And once congestion is collapsed, it's 1,100 cars per lane. Robot cars can travel so much faster and with a very short following distance that you can do 10,000 cars per lane per hour. So we more or less instantly, well, if we transitioned instantly, we get this 5 times increase in the carrying capacity of our existing roads. They can also be smarter in a bunch of other ways, timing lights better, and getting better routes. Of course, there is still an actual limit, so perhaps you ultimately do get congestion in the future, but 5 times increase in our capacity seems like it would solve it for quite a while. Right here.
Assuming the scenario of gravity will roll out, has there been a calculation for the point of saturation that would be needed to effectively reduce congestion to a certain amount? Is there a correlation with the equation?
If there is, I don't know of it, but I have seen people pointing out that as soon as there are at all like multiple robot cars on roads, they can form a convoy with that really close following distance, and that immediately reduces congestion slightly. It also, interestingly, messes up your windshield. Rocks are being picked up by cars all the time, but by the time they hit you, this is the last question. By the time they hit you, they have lost velocity, or they don't hit you because they're lower. But in the tests that have done with this already, windshields get wrecked, and you're going to need to make them out of stronger materials. Okay, if you have any more questions, find me afterwards. Thank you very much.